in high school, I did this thing called Boys State.
Mhm.
And you knew about that, Andra?
I knew about it. Of course, I didn't do it, but I knew about it.
Yeah, I think there was a girls' state too, but all of us kind of did it, and it was just a regular. I don't know. I didn't think anything of it. It was just a thing you were meant to do, and we all got in and went, and mind you, I grew up in Kansas, where you know me and my pals were probably a lot more left than you know most people, but we get there and it was you got to march, right? There's a lot of marching that takes place. It's really like a mock government. You build a you elect a governor from the boys in the camp. You elect aldermen and representatives from different parts of the state, and you build a state government. So the first hour and a half of every day you march, and then you get to this sort of parking lot, and there's a stage set up where the men who run the thing are on the stage, and they do a benediction. Right, they pray. And there was, they say, bow your heads, everyone bow your heads, and there's 400 of us. And a friend of mine would just he's like, I'm not gonna bow my head, this is stupid. And the kid next to him elbows him, and he says, bow your fucking head, like this, right? And so my friend was like, okay, I will actually do that, because I don't want to get beaten up right now. But this is, I think about this as people like Hegseth. Hegseth was basically the guy standing next to my friend, bow your head. That's all coercion. And it makes me feel like this militarism, like you were saying, the marching in place, the recitation and all of that has been a part of this all along. It just, us normies didn't really see it.
Well, I mean, it's certainly been a part of white Christian nationalist churches for decades. It's also been inserted in and out of the military. I mean, I have someone who follows my work who was very high up in one branch of the military who says this has been going on since the 70s or 80s in the military, where they'd get somebody in at a high level and they'd try to inject this into whatever they had control over. But we've never had someone like that controlling it all.
Yes.
So, that's the difference here. We may have certain aspects of this that has been seeded across the different branches of the military, but we've never had someone at the top who's now telling everyone, this is what you're going to believe. And this is how we're going to restructure the military to make sure that you either get on board with this way of thinking or you're going to be put out of the military. It's I mean, the military again is a form of indoctrination.
Of course.
You go into the military. I've never been in the military. I don't think you've been in the military, but you go in and they break you down in basic training and give you a certain way to approach things. And that is a form of indoctrination. This is, you follow the chain of command and you do things a certain way, and you have to do that or people die. That is part of what the military is about. But this is an infusion of a different kind of indoctrination, religious indoctrination, the confluence of war fighting and Christian nationalist religious beliefs being one of the things that people should be fighting for and killing for at the highest point of our military, and being put down through the ranks. And when people push back in leadership positions, they're replaced.
Right.
When people don't go along, and I said this last May, the people who don't go along with these optional prayer breakfast, prayer services that were monthly at the time that have now become weekly, will be pushed out. It's a way to identify who will go along and who can be indoctrinated in this and who won't go along, so that they can put them to the side. They've had almost a year to do that now. So they're rolling out the next phase.
And this is, that kind of circling of the wagons, around your people or the approved people, the circle is now encompassing the entire borders of the United States, right? That is the thing, and you are now, whether you like it or not, a part of that circle. And we've talked about this in the past too. You're going to have to believe, or else you won't get services. You won't get support. You'll be ostracized, and all of this. And I think the military aspect of it makes that even more frightening, because it's coercion through violence. I mean, Doug Wilson, our favorite pastor, who is Hegseth's pastor, right?
He's Hegseth's spiritual mentor's pastor.
Okay.
Brooks Pottinger is, I think, actually Hegseth's direct.
I see. But Doug Wilson is a head honcho kind of guy. And he said he does not support women's right to vote. He's openly lobbying for a Christian theocratic vision in Washington. When asked if establishing a DC church was part of a mission to turn the U.S. into a Christian nation, Wilson said, yes, in fact, it is. And this is another thing that we talk about all the time, that you've been calling out for a long time. But all of this feels unbelievable. It feels like the Da Vinci Code, right? They are telling us all of this. They are saying all of it.
Yeah, and what continues to be so frustrating for me is there are millions of Americans who've never been exposed to this.
Yes.
You've never been around people who've been in high control environments, or who are currently in high control environments. And so you just think, well, this is just a subset. It's a few people. It's a few wingnut cracks and cranks, and we don't have to worry about that. I mean, they're never going to take over all of it. And so I keep going back to a PRRI, like a Pew Religion survey, the last one that was done on Christian nationalism that I saw. There are 300 and some million people in the United States. 64% of those people now identify as Christian. That's down from 90-something% in the 1970s. Wow. And Christian nationalists, quite frankly, have themselves to thank for that. But anyway, 64% of 300 and something million people is approaching 200 million people, if I can do the math in my head real quick, and I'm not good at that. So let's just go with that number. 10% of that 64% were deemed to be hardcore, radicalized, extremist Christian nationalists by the survey takers. So that, is roughly 20 million people, if I do the math in my head correctly. And another 20% were deemed, of that 64%, were deemed to be Christian nationalist sympathizers, Christian nationalist adjacent. These are people who could be radicalized and pulled into the 10% given the right circumstances and the right incentives. So that could be another 40 or so million people. Ugh. 60 million Americans, whether you know any of them at all or not, is a lot of people. So, and these are the people who are like Pete Hegseth, who are trying to turn the military essentially into a Christian nationalist war-fighting machine who will fight enemies that they define as enemies, which aren't just going to be foreign enemies anymore. It is a 10 alarm fire for this country and the people in this country to stop sitting and saying, every week, Sam and Andra talk all these conspiracy theories, and there's nobody like that. Nobody believes that stuff. That sounds crazy. 60 million people, according to an independent surveyor, could be in that group of people who believe that it's okay to have our military killing their enemies, including secular humanists and people who don't agree with their faith.